Here are my top 10 easiest houseplants that you can look after that you can't kill. Hello guys, and welcome back to the Cozy Jungle. So in this video I wanted to go through the 10 easiest houseplants that you can look after that I recommend are the best to go for when it comes to keeping them alive. Now these are the easiest care and easiest maintenance plants that you can probably go for, in my opinion. There are plenty of others, but these are the ones that I feel are the best, mostly because I've had really good experiences with the majority of them. So what we're going to do is go through each of the 10 plants, and we're going to go through and make sure that you understand why they're easy and why they can be beneficial towards having them in your house and how they can be an amazing addition to the aesthetic of the house. So of course the first plant that I want to suggest is the Monstera. Now this is my favourite. I really enjoy looking after this plant, and it has been amazing throughout the whole time that I've bought my first one into buying many of them. Now, depending on whether or not they're variegated can make a difference as to whether or not they are easy to look after or whether they become quite difficult. But a bog standard Monstera deliciosa is much easier to manage, and it can be done in any given environment. It's a very good indirect sunlight plant that you can have in any size pot, and it will more than likely grow. During the winter you don't need to necessarily do much, you just got to leave it to do its thing and make sure that it has that indirect sunlight. But the cheese plant, the Monstera, is the easiest option I can suggest out of the 10 because it is a good and pretty plant that you can use in any environment, and it grows massive if you choose it to. Of course, one of the main things is get yourself a moss pole as it starts to get bigger because it loves to climb. Now the next option is the Boston fern. Now the Boston fern is again very straightforward. You don't have to do anything at all, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in any sunlight whatsoever. I've had it in multiple places and it's thrived in every condition. You've just got to make sure that the leaves will tell you a big example as to whether or not it needs a watering if it's drying out, because they start to turn brown on the edges. It's a very easy way of understanding whether the plant needs something. So if you're finding that the Boston isn't quite growing the way that you want it to, have a look and see what the leaves are doing. They're starting to brown. Is it because you haven't actually watered it that much, or have you overwatered it? In which case you just move that plant into a position of sunlight or slightly further away to allow the drainage to completely clear and for the soil to start to dry a little bit more if you've overwatered it. But the Boston fern is really straightforward to look after, and it can grow as big as you want it to. You can keep trimming it to keep it to the size that it is, or you can leave it in its pot and it won't grow any bigger than what it actually is. But it is a very good plant to have nonetheless. Now the third one is the peace lily. Now I've had a mixed bag with this, but from what I know it is a very good easy plant to look after. Now I've had about 3 or 4 which I've actually split out, which was an original 1 plant pot, but I split them into 3 in the hopes that I could get a little bit more. One of them died off. One of them was unfortunately died off, which I looked after for my brother because he got it given as a gift. That eventually died. But the ones that I've had myself have been absolutely fine. They've grown extremely well. I've got one in the bathroom and I've got one here, and it's grown particularly well, especially the one in the bathroom. Now that's also something to note with some of these plants is depending on where they are in the location will ultimately dictate if it does decide to grow or whether it decides to die. So with something like a peace lily, it loves the humidity, which is why it's a perfect position for it to be in the bathroom. Keep it as close to the shower as you can and allow it to do its thing, give it a water. Indirect sunlight is the perfect way for it to continue to grow. But the peace lily is a great option to have within the house, and it's a beautiful flower when it does completely come through. Now the fourth one is the spider plant. Now of course we have to have this in our top 10 because it is the easiest plant that you can really look after. If you've killed that, you need to really address what you're doing with your houseplants because it can withstand a lot. You can have it in any given environment, you can overwater it, underwater it, and it will still manage to survive. It is a fantastic plant to have, and it's a beautiful plant as well. Now it can grow to as big as you want. They'll start to throw spiderlings out, in which case you can propagate those and create a much bigger pile of spiders, but you can keep it within its pot if you wanted it to and just keep trimming off those spiderlings, and eventually it will just stay as is. But it's a beautiful plant that does flower during the summer as well, and it is a great addition to any part of the house that you have. It's a beautiful plant. I can recommend that enough. Next option is the pothos. Now these pothos are really easy to look after, and they can either trail or climb depending on how you want the aesthetic of the room to be, but it is a very good addition towards making sure that it's an easy plant to look after. Indirect sunlight is another great example. The majority of these plants are all indirect sunlight, and you can have it in any given environment and it will do extremely well. And again, it gives you a big indicator whether or not it needs watering or whether if it doesn't, because the leaves will start to fall off and brown. It is as straightforward as that. If it doesn't get enough water, it will brown, turn yellow and then fall off. So it's a great way of knowing whether or not the plant is doing well based on its position, and if you're watering it correctly, it will let you know if you're doing something wrong. So it's a very straightforward plant that I definitely would recommend. Following on from the trading plant is a devil's ivy. Now I've got one in the corner that I've propagated multiple times and all of them have been extremely successful. It's a fantastic plant and it does grow to as big as you want it to be as well. You can get it to trail, you can get it to climb. I've done both and they've both come out extremely well. They are fantastic and very resilient, and they'll grow in any given environment. Now one thing to note is if you have it closer towards indirect sunlight and closer towards the sun, the leaves get massive, they're huge, they can really grow to a bigger size than your hand. Now equally, if you have it in an area which doesn't have a lot of sunlight, you'll probably notice that the leaves will get a little bit smaller, but it doesn't stop the beautiful variegation that you get, which is that slightly yellow speckled stripes that come through the plant. If you leave it long enough and it matures, it will start to fenestrate, which is another great thing to have, but it's a fantastic plant that can withstand a lot of damage. You could leave it without watering it for a good while and it will still manage to survive. And again, it's a really good plant to let you know if something's wrong, because the leaves will start to turn yellow and eventually fall off. So it gives you a good indicator if you're doing something wrong. Continuing on with these types of plants, we have a philodendron. Now philodendrons can be a mixed bag depending on if they're variegated or not, but it's a great plant that you can have in any given environment, whether or not it trails or whether or not it climbs. It's a good addition, it's a beautiful plant, you can have different varieties and they all have different shapes and sizes. It's a fantastic plant. I absolutely love them, I've got some of myself, they're brilliant, I can't recommend these enough. Now the dracena is the next option. Dracena is a good one to have if you want a good sturdy plant that can eventually become a tree. You have the choice of buying it as a tree, but you can get it as a plant, a normal pot in a small size, and it will eventually go to the stage of where you can start to peel the leaves off and it will climb in towards a tree. So I think one of these are probably the most resilient out of all of the ones that we've got in our list here. You could absolutely batter the living daylights out of this plant and it will still manage to survive. I've had one pretty much since I first started looking after houseplants, and it has stood the test of time. I've left it to dry out, it's still managed to survive. I put it in direct sunlight, it's still managed to survive. I've overwatered it, it's still managed to survive. It's done a considerable amount and it has still managed to continue to grow. It's a fantastic plant, especially if you feel that you don't have time to really look after a lot of plants and you think, I just need something simple but still a beautiful looking plant. Following on from a sturdier plant, a ZZ plant is another good option. Now again, you can choose whether or not to have one in a slightly smaller pot or if it becomes a tree. But a ZZ plant is really straightforward to look after. It just needs that indirect sunlight closer towards full sunlight and it will do its thing. You don't have to do too much to it. It's a good indicator of whether or not it needs a lot of water. It will let you know. It's a fantastic plant that will continue to grow regardless of the season. It's a really good plant to look after. Now the final option is succulents. If all else fails and you find that you can't look after a standard houseplant, the next option is succulents, because ultimately they do survive regardless of what you do. You have to absolutely cremate it for it to die, or you have to completely drown it for it to die. There is absolutely no way that these things will ever die out. They are a good addition to any part of the house and they will survive. So if in doubt and you feel that you can't look after a standard houseplant, a succulent is going to be a great option for you to use, and they're still beautiful looking plants. It's just a different variety that's going to make sure it's easily maintainable, so if you decide to go away quite frequently or you forget to water them, they'll still continue to grow. So that is the top 10 that I suggest as the easiest houseplants for you to look after, and you can keep them alive without them dying out. So thank you very much for listening. I hope it's given you some good ideas for plants that you can have within your household. Please like, share and subscribe, and let's get the cozy jungle into as many houses as we can.